Hello everyone. A couple videos ago I built a mechanical keyboard. I had a great time doing so, and ever since then I've wanted to build another small project on my channel. I've always been a fan of retro game consoles. Not that I'm a collector or even that I really play them. It's just fun to see the community that surrounds them, as well as the crazy things some fan bases will do to preserve, or in this case, improve the overall system. A long time ago, I owned an old GameBoy SP. It was given to me by a friend who was an avid retro gaming nerd, and it was definitely rough around the edges. I only had one game for it, which was some sort of Wario game. Even though I can't remember the name, I still remember having a lot of fun playing on it, and ever since then, I've always wanted to have another Game Boy. Almost a year ago, I bought a refurbished Game Boy SP on eBay, and ever since then, I've been dying to make it a work of art, if that makes sense. Which brings me to today's video. There's a company called Bloxy Pixel, and they make a metal housing for a Game Boy SP, as well as many other Nintendo systems. And today, I want to build it for you guys. Now, the kit comes with a few things. The case, of course, some buttons, and hardware, all of which can be selected in many colorways. Optionally, you can also get a headphone jack and even a USB-C charging port for it if you wish to do so. I opted to include it in my kit, but I ended up not using them since I didn't have the supplies needed to wire that up. As you can see, I'm showing off some of the stuff that came from the kit. I went with a black case and purple buttons, since purple seems to be a color I default to when it comes to many things. The case, unfortunately, cannot be purple. I believe there were only 3 or 4 colorways for it, most of which were out of stock. If you yourself want to go this far for your old Game Boy, you can also upgrade the screen. Everyone knows how dim the screens were on these things, and many companies have made a much brighter, better screen for it. I didn't end up getting one, unfortunately, as they're rather expensive. They were also out of stock on Bloxy Pixel's website. You can go on Amazon and pick up one, but I'm a little wary of the dubious quality of some things when it comes to Amazon. As you can see, there's a lot of attention to detail when it comes to this kit. Everything feels nice and high quality, and the machining looks great. Even the battery cover has a little Bloxy Pixel logo on the back, just to let you know who it's made by. Alright, I don't know if I stated this before, but in order to actually build this, you are going to need a donor Game Boy. You can get them to build one for you, and completely omit the process of getting your own Game Boy to harvest parts from, but I'm going to use mine. As you can see, it looks pretty much pristine. It's a nice purple color, once again. I default to purple, and it works great. The screen is dim, and sadly I cannot remedy that in this video, but overall, it's a great system. Now we're going to get to the actual building process. As you can see, I'm just laying out everything I'm going to need, including the case, my Game Boy, and the parts that came with the kit. I don't know if I mentioned this, but that little gray piece is a battery spacer for any of you that plan to do this, and you're using your stock battery, you're going to need that. Also, a nice set of screwdrivers works great. To start things off, I'm going to start by removing the battery from my Game Boy. For any of you trying to do this, you're going to need a tri-point screwdriver or screwdriver bit. I didn't have one, and I ended up having to borrow another kit from somebody, but in the end I got it off. The whole disassembly process was relatively easy. It's only a handful of screws holding the whole thing together, and besides the little tri-point screwdriver bit, there were no snags and everything went off smoothly. After removing the handful of screws that hold it together, it should simply pull apart. There are a few hidden screws on various parts, such as the screen, however. If it's not coming apart easily, double check everything and make sure you haven't missed a screw. I also went ahead and disassembled the screen. We're going to need to harvest the screen from my old Game Boy, and the screws are hidden under these little rubber bumpers on all 4 corners of the screen. Now before you go yanking at that PCB, it's important to know that there are 3 small screws that are going to hold it in place. Once you've removed them, you can simply take the PCB off of the case. You want to be a little careful as there is a small ribbon cable inside that can be susceptible to tearing or downright damaging it when you're removing the PCB. The end of the ribbon cable is held on by a small connector. I know you can't really see it right now, but there's 2 little black tabs on each side of the connector. You undo those and the ribbon cable will simply pop out. And we have a bare PCB. It's going to need a little bit of work before we can finally start putting it in the case. Right now, I'm grabbing the little rubbers from the old case. You want to hold on to these things as they're for your buttons and the kit doesn't come with any new ones. With that out of the way, I have to start trimming the PCB. Some of the little solder joints are a little sharp and pointy and a little too long, and we want to minimize the risk of them poking the ribbon cable. As such, I need to actually go in with a flush cutters and trim some of them nice and flat to minimize that risk. It's always good to give your parts a little test fit. God forbid you somehow managed to buy the wrong screen and only found out now that it doesn't in fact fit inside your case. Something similar always happens with my Now, in order to make my stock screen fit into the case with no issues, I need to peel off the thin layer of foam in the back. For some of you that might come off easy, for some of you that might come off hard. But if you bought an aftermarket screen, you probably won't have to deal with this at all. Now with a stock screen, you're going to have to cover any of the exposed contacts with either Kapton tape or electrical tape. I didn't have any Kapton tape, I only had electrical tape. Pretty much the only difference is that electrical tape is a little thicker and it's going to leave behind a sticky mess if you go to remove it in the future. Right here I'm also putting a little bit of electrical tape on the ribbon cable solely to protect it from any of the sharp solder joints that are on the PCB. After all the semi-tedious work is done, we can actually get to work on fitting some stuff together. I started out with the buttons as that's kind of the main course of action. This is where those little gray rubber pieces are going to come in handy. While I was demonstrating how to put the rubbers onto the buttons, my brother-in-law came in and decided to distract me. That's just a little bit of finger grease. A little bit of elbow grease.
Elbow grease.
Perfect. Just cramping. Now at this stage we fitted everything necessary and we gave it a test fire. Hey. Shortly after making sure everything worked, I started to put on the shoulder buttons. Now before you decide to retire or just straight up throw away your old case, you are going to have to take off the small metal plate that helps guide the cartridge into the receiver on the PCB. It's held on by 2 screws, but when you put it onto the metal case, there is simply 1 small notch and 1 screw that holds it in place. Once all of your buttons are in place, including the shoulder buttons, the volume switch, and the power switch, you can put on the back casing. Before you start screwing it down, you want to make sure that it's not pinching everything and that all of the buttons are working correctly. As some of you might be able to pick up in the background, my brother-in-law decided to engage in some video entertainment, and he chose one of my videos for some reason.
I haven't watched this one yet.
After that mild distraction was out of the way, I finally finished up the build and started cleaning up. I don't know if I forgot to record myself putting the battery in, but that's done already. All you had to do was put the battery in and put that gray retainer over top of it. After fiddling around with it a little bit, it should pop into place and you can put the cover on. This build went by fairly quickly. I had expected it to take a lot longer, but I actually got it done in maybe an hour or 2, minus some distractions. Overall, I enjoyed the experience. It came out looking great and working just as good as it did before. Obviously, there is no graphical improvements or any gaming improvements, but it's made of metal. It looks great and feels great to play on, and I couldn't really ask for a better experience. That's gonna be all for now though. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this little build, and I'll see you in the next video. Good night.